Take one.
What's your name?
My name's Eddie. James Bond and I founded Undefeated in 2002. Late 90s, union shop. It was really about survival. You know, we're from the streets in a sense. We worked week to week, paycheck to paycheck. We had our own businesses, but always felt like we were going out of business. Always looking for that next thing for the shop. I would go to Foot Locker and buy 24 pairs of Air Force Ones exclusively for LA. I sent it to my boy in, I think at the time was Amsterdam, and then he'd send me what they had exclusively. You know, we just put them in our showcase. I literally had like 4 to 6 SKUs, you know, probably the Michigan Dunks, this burgundy Air Force Ones. I had never seen this before, because with Nike, it was all like sports colors and stuff, you know, a lot of white stuff. But when I saw that stuff, it's like, wow. We went to a barbecue at my boy Paul's house, and James was there. And that's where I approached him. And I said, you know, I have this space. I want to do this sneaker shop. And then we just shook hands. And then honestly, the rest was history.
James Bond, co-founder of Undefeated. I had a store called K-Bond. We started because we had the original woven shoe. Nike we need this intel. We'd like to find out what's up. So they sent me 250 pairs of each. They were gone within hours. One of Eddie's guys came down and bought a pair. And then it kind of really started, like, how are they getting Nikes? They don't have a Nike account either. Eddie was down the street at Union. We knew of each other, but we really didn't know each other. Ironically, a mutual friend of ours from New York introduced us and realized we had more in common than we realized. And then we started to kind of hang out. One day he was just like, look, I have this location. I'd love to do something. How do we do this together? We were interested in doing it together, and that's how really Undefeated started.
My name's Paul Middleman. I guess the intro to this whole thing is I worked at Stussy. I was there, well, before Undefeated. I was creative director at that point. I had no formal involvement with Undefeated. I just was around because honestly, we'd be like, oh, it's 3 o'clock, what are you doing? Let's get coffee, or you know, something like that. And that La Brea area between Stussy and Union was a bit of a hub because it predated Fairfax, obviously. And people just, you know, everyone that worked there, everyone knew each other. It was just kind of friendly.
In the beginning, you know, people really didn't know. Like, it still wasn't Energy at the time. That wasn't the name of the business yet. They were still trying to figure out what's going on. What is this fever? You know, we were ripping through shoes really quick. We were turning them really fast. And they were seeing this and they were thinking, how can we participate and help you guys? Because this is all new to us.
The Nike guys came by, Mark Parker came by, and they were like, okay, you can have a Nike account. Mark is a visionary, so he saw. I remember one day he told me, Eddie, you know, I could see these all over the place, Undefeated shops. He actually said that. He was like, I could see that in New York, I could see it in Tokyo. And I was like, man, that's the idea.
You know, Mark Parker was in on the regular. I think he loved Los Angeles. He liked our connection to the art. You know, we had the billboard on top of 112 La Brea.
I'm at the shop, Mark Parker pulls up, Sandy Bodecker pulls up, Lance Armstrong pulls up, and Tinker Hatfield pulls up. I remember Tinker just straight up asking me, if you could do like a sneaker, what would you do? And I said the Jordan 4, because that was one that I was wearing. It had a nice, like military-esque, like tank vibe. And if you were gonna do a color, what would you do? He's put me on the spot, you know? So at the time, we all had Blackberries, right? And Blackberries were that sort of like a purplish, bluish color. So I just showed him my Blackberry, literally raised my Blackberry, and I said this. Then we got the sample maybe in about a month. And they were these like, basically inspired by Blackberries. It was like a bluish, purplish, royal bluish color. I was rushed, I had no time to think. I sent Mark Parker an email saying, yo, this is dope, thank you. Can I have another opportunity? Can I have time to like give you something that I wanna do? And we were just discussing it. What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? Because I'm not a designer. I would just get my best crew together whenever we had a project. I pulled Chris Gibbs in a meeting to help me design a shoe.
My name's Chris Gibbs, and I'm the creative director of Undefeated, as well as the owner of Union. This was at a time when, yeah, this was the one thing we were gonna do. None of this had been done before. I think about just freedom, like freedom of creativity, freedom of expression. It was a dream come true to grow up as a sneakerhead.
Jupiter was with us, he worked at Undefeated, and Paul Middleman was there. And he said, if you have an opportunity, you should do more on what Undefeated's base is, which was kind of military inspired.
I had an MA1 jacket, like just a sample. It wasn't like anything fancy, but it was a vintage one. And I believe they had some sample stuff on the rack, and between all those, it became, oh, let's just do it like an MA1.
And at the time, I had a satin baseball jacket. On the inside of the label, there was a Velcro patch over the label. That's what inspired the Tearaway Velcro logo.
Everything just happened. And it was great because that was about the conversations.
Hi, I'm Jupiter Desvi. I'm a lead for neighborhood category at Nike Footwear. I was at Undefeated from 2002 to 2011. I was the resident designer, so pretty much the only guy that knew how to use a computer or run the programs. I was the one to hand over tech packs to the Jordan team. We were all just stewing and cooking in the room. Like at the time, it was like no one was doing a shoe like that at all. So I think what we were doing was just, opening the door for possibilities of like storytelling on footwear.
There was no rooms of people. There was no mood boards. There was no AI. It was like, the rest is history.
Where we landed just was more on brand, and it still resonates today.
It was great. Just the energy. I think the exclusivity of it was really special.
I think it's one of those where when you see it, you just know it's different. Yeah, that's good. That's a good shoe.